Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webcast entitled PRIMEChat, Better Insights, Better PR, ROI. Today's conversation is brought to you by Prime Research and powered by OnStream Media. In May of 2017, 10 top corporate communicators from some of the world's most recognizable organizations shared their experiences, guidelines, and insights for the application of research in public relations. In the coming weeks and months, Prime Research, along with conference partners, the Institute for Public Relations, will present a series of one-to-one interviews featuring each of the 10 executives. The second installment features Molly McKenna, Jandrain Director, PR and Brand Engagement, McDonald's USA. Molly will be interviewed by Sarab Kocher, Ph.D., the Director of Research at the Institute for Public Relations. Unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, Prime Research CEO Mark Weiner will not be able to join us today. We would like to thank Sarab Kocher for joining us. To submit a question or comment at any time during the webcast, please click the Ask a Question button located at the bottom of your screen. Simply type your message into the box and click on the Submit button. Alternatively, you could submit your question via Twitter using the hashtag PRIMEChat. All questions will be answered at the end of today's presentation. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to today's moderator, Sarab Kocher. Sarab, the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Kat, and thank you everyone for attending today's series of PRIMEChat, where we talk about better insights and better PR ROI. And I'm so glad that Molly McKenna is joining us today to talk more about measurement and the measurement journey at McDonald's. Molly is the Director of Public Relations for McDonald's, where she oversees the public relations strategy to support McDonald's U.S. business and brand. In the role that she has held since 2012, she's also responsible for developing and leading a strategic, measurable, and integrated communications platform to effectively reach and engage defined audiences with McDonald's story, business, and brand actions. Prior to this position, Molly also served as External Communications Manager for McDonald's USA, where she was responsible for developing communication strategies that builds and supports McDonald's national marketing efforts and plan to win business strategy. She has been a founding member of McDonald's Twitter team and helped establish McDonald's blogger engagement practice as well. Molly served as the Global Communications Supervisor from 2002 to 2006, supporting public relations programming for McDonald's international business in 100-plus countries and driving McDonald's external communications efforts for sponsorships, including the Olympic Games and World Cup soccer. And it's such an interesting thing that I was just talking to her before the webinar about McDonald's in Pakistan and India and how the brand and the identity comes all together in different parts of the world. So please welcome Molly and join her as she digs deep into how McDonald's measures and how the measurement journey for the organization has been. Thank you so much, Molly, for your time, and over to you now.
Thank you so much, Sarab. That was a great trip down memory lane, and fun hearing, some of the things. So thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you all for taking your lunch hour, or what might be right after your lunch hour or before, to hear a little bit about measurement. But really want to talk today about some of the ways that we've been really focusing on smarter measurement at McDonald's, and hopefully some takeaways for all of you that will allow you to find some tools and resources and easy wins as you dial up measurement, which no doubt is always kind of a challenging aspect in the PR world with budgets and resources and kind of everything we're tasked to work on a day-to-day basis. So I know that the concept of measurement can often sound a little bit boring, and so hats off to all of you, first of all, for even taking the time to join this webcast. But I thought I would start with a video that always kind of inspires me and the team on maybe what's not the right approach when it comes to measurement, and really helps reinforce the important need for why measurement in the PR space is so important. So, Kat, would love if you could please roll the video for everyone to watch.
We need to do an online video about our brand and things, and put it on YouTube. The agency is going to do social media stuff to it, and make it go viral and everything.
What will this cost us?
Lots of dollars.
What's the video going to be about?
Something really funny and viral. They mentioned something about cats and a baby chicken. Oh, and I think somebody gets set on fire, throws up and then explodes.
So what will be our return on investment?
We'll figure all that out afterwards, when we have the charts and graphs and bullet points and slideshows and bagels and cream cheese.
Will there be Danish there too?
Yes. And yogurt cups.
Sounds like a solid plan.
We now take you to 1 month later.
Okay, so what are the results of our online video and social media campaign?
We got millions of video views.
And are we getting what we expected to get out of the campaign?
What did we expect to get out of the campaign?
I told you. A return on investment. Did we get a return on our investment?
We have lots of Facebook friends that like us.
Okay, I'm not sure. Hopefully the video worked for everyone, but nonetheless, if you weren't able to see it, we'll make it available after. And I think Steal It Shamelessly, it's a great video that really reinforces, if you're trying to sell in the need for measurement, it really reinforces the need for it. So we'll make sure everyone gets that after the fact. I think when you think about measurement in the PR space, we often, I think, as PR practitioners, look at measurement at the campaign finish, right? So it's pulling all those great clips, all the great broadcast coverage, all the different tweets, blog posts, et cetera, and putting them and packaging them in a bow and sending them off to your client or your management or leadership team to showcase, everything that you achieved with whatever campaign or push you were working on. And the fact is that measurement today really needs to be a holistic approach. It's got to start with the strategy and kind of the brief and what you're setting out to do. And then it has to end and kind of continue on with evaluating and then, kind of this perfect circle of, taking those learnings and applying them moving forward. And I think, if we can all follow this approach that's not just, checking the boxes at the end of a campaign, but really thinking about it holistically from the beginning is where you really win from a communications perspective. So today I want to just walk through a few of the ways that we're doing this and what I really think is smart measurement today, and I think a lot of people within the industry kind of share these ideals. First, it's about, defining objectives as you work towards your goal, gathering insights, conducting polling, targeting to really be, smarter about reaching your audience, listening in real time, and then analyzing and measuring. So I'm going to go through each of these in a little bit more detail to really explain, how this has come to life for us. So one of the things I think from a PR perspective, we often get caught in the trap is that the way we measure doesn't necessarily hit our goals of what we're really setting out to do, right? So if our goal is to change the perceptions about, someone's perception on a product or a company or any given service or need, let's say it's the cable industry or a hospital, and you're working to change those perceptions, traditional KPIs, may not allow you to really know if you've been successful. If you're trying to, drive people in to try something new, that a new product that you're putting out there, if you're just measuring media impressions, it's not really going to tell you if you were able to really achieve those goals. So really thinking from the beginning of what are we really trying to do, what is success going to look like, and then really trying to back out the analytics and KPIs from there to understand if you're successful. One of the ways we've been doing this is through understanding how we can drive advocacy from a PR and communications perspective. And we actually know that when we have higher amounts of advocacy and when we have people talking about in a positive way a product or our brand, it's actually a predictor of sales. And so we can see that when sales are higher, so is our advocacy and vice versa. So this has been a really key way when we define our objectives of we're trying to drive advocacy and buzz around something that ultimately is going to lead to more sales or more visits into our restaurants. And so through a company called MotiveQuest, they have helped and they track for us on an annual basis our advocacy scores, what is driving advocacy and what isn't, and really being able to set this goal at the beginning has been really critical to doing that. So the next thing that we really do is after we define what we're trying to do and what the business outcomes and goals are, is what insights do we know and what insights can we pull to really help guide our strategy. And I think, as communicators, we don't often do this enough. I think the advertising world is, well-equipped in terms of looking at, different insights to help inform a big campaign idea. And I think we've been finding that when we can lean on these insights that help match to the target audience we're trying to reach, we're able to be much smarter. And at the end of the day, then our results, come through in a bigger way. And I want to give an example recently when we were launching 3 new sizes of our Big Mac. So we have our traditional Big Mac, and then we have the Grand Mac and the Mac Jr. And I apologize in advance if I'm making you all hungry. But just talking about these products on their own was not something that media were going to be very interested in, right? So people are launching new burgers every day. So we really wanted to dig into what insights could we find. Is there any, silver bullet that's, getting people excited about the Big Mac that we could lean into? So we did a whole exercise both in polling social conversation to understand what people were talking about, but also through our advocacy research to understand what is driving advocacy online about the Big Mac and what could we use, what could our advocates do to help us propel that message forward. So this whole advocacy and social digging that we did really helped us understand that our special sauce and the special sauce that's on the Big Mac is a key advocacy driver. It's something people love about the Big Mac. It's something that's unique. And it's something people are talking about in a positive way. So rather than lean on just kind of the rational, message that we're revealing these new items, we found this insight through this exercise all about the Big Mac. And you can see here just some of the continued social conversations that really helped propel this big idea that had we not really done this exercise, we wouldn't have uncovered. So we had this insight that we brought forward, and we knew we were going to lean into the special sauce. And so last January, the idea was that we gave away, for the first time ever in the U.S., 10,000 limited edition bottles of our Big Mac special sauce. And we leveraged the bottle not only as a tangible thing that would drive people into our restaurants to get and be one of the only people to get these bottles, but also we leveraged the label and the bottle itself to be our press release. So it really talked about not only did we have these new sizes of Big Mac, but this was kind of the latest step in our effort to change as McDonald's is going through kind of a brand transformation. So the idea was that on this one day we would give away our Big Mac sauce, and we had several different news cycles to be able to do that. So we had a teaser where we sent out napkins to different media and influencers, letting them know that big things were happening on January 26th. And then we had different, videos that kind of announced that we were doing this. We were able to create an app that it was a soft locator app, so people could see what restaurants and where they would get this. So basically, this insight really allowed us to come up with a really unique activation that, again, wouldn't have come to life had we not had this rigor around being smarter and gathering insights to inform our work. So on this one day, we had this large giveaway. We had people lined up at our restaurants trying to get the Big Mac sauce. We did our first ever live stream across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the same time, where we did kind of an escape room with trying to uncover where the special sauce was hidden in a vault. And it was, on Facebook alone, it was our most commented post of all time. So really drove high engagement. We had an auction for our Ronald McDonald House charities, but even more exciting is just naturally and organically, there were hundreds of different eBay auctions online of people selling the sauce and really helping to propel that conversation. So we saw really, really big results. It was almost 1/3 of our total conversation globally. So from an earned media perspective, to be able to drive that conversation was really, really exciting. Broke different records in terms of Facebook that I talked about. We saw 5% increase to the restaurants that had the Big Mac giveaway, so it was really driving people into our restaurants. And you can see some of the additional results there. But really, really successful for us. And, it really helped us start kind of this new approach to being really rigorous with our communications programs in terms of getting a brief, understanding what that one insight is that might lead to the big idea. And it's helped us deliver other big ideas throughout the year, and one that I'll talk about in a little bit. We also saw really strong social influence, and most importantly, when we look back to that advocacy research that I talked about at the beginning and the correlation with sales, you can see there that throughout the month we had the biggest spike in advocacy on the day and week of our giveaway. So it worked. It drove positive buzz and conversation and advocacy, and ultimately it drove higher Big Mac sales. So for us to be able to go back and measure this, and show how our work, which was a week prior to the advertising launch, we were really able to go back to leadership and be able to demonstrate PR's value, that we helped prime the pump for marketing. We helped build this large amount of conversation. We leveraged an insight that was universal and that gave us a big idea. And so, really helped us bring that forward. And I want to share another recent case study that kind of was a follow-up idea leveraging the same approach for our new signature crafted recipes. So in May, we announced some new burgers and chicken sandwiches that were a more premium line of recipes where you can customize your protein, you can customize your bun, and then there's a number of different toppings such as pico de gallo and guacamole and things like that. And so we were really trying to call attention to that. But as we looked through and did some of the research and tried to pull out what are those insights, we learned that about 1% of the conversation online is people talking about new burgers and sandwiches. So the fact that really what it came down to is people don't really care. There's these new items all the time. There's such an oversaturated space, and people aren't that, excited about, a new offering each week. So what we did try to find was, are there any insights? Is there an insight that we could leverage that would get people excited? And one of the things we found out is that people generally love talking about taste and toppings, right? And they want to enjoy toppings. And kind of like when it boiled down to it, the simple headline was, everyone loves guacamole and bacon. Who doesn't? And so lean into kind of the new toppings, the taste enjoyment of these items, and the fact that they were coming to McDonald's. So had we not leaned into these insights and done kind of this rigor on measurement, I can tell you what we would have done, which would have been a very rational play on these premium new ingredients. Maybe we would have set up a farmer's market and had some of our chefs talking about these great new ingredients. That really wouldn't have driven kind of the conversation and buzz we were looking for, again, because this is a cluttered space and a lot of people are talking in this area. So these insights that we were leveraged, that enjoyment drives advocacy, and that toppings like guac and bacon are something that get people excited and get them talking, led us to our insight. And so what we were able to do was come up with kind of a big idea that was very quirky, unexpected, and fun, that got people talking, but really leaned into what we were trying to talk about, which was these new premium ingredients on these new burgers. And so back in May, we unveiled the fork, which was the first ever fork utensil made out of French fries. And the idea that when you bite into these delicious new burgers and savor those delicious toppings like guacamole and bacon, oftentimes some of the items spill out because they're messy and loaded with really good toppings. And so you might need this uselessly useful new utensil called the fork to make sure that you savor every one of those last toppings. So this was kind of the big idea that came from this insight around leveraging fun, the taste, and the toppings. And so now I'd love to show you, hopefully it'll work, a video of how we unveiled this.
The following is a presentation for McDonald's signature crafted recipes and the
Hopefully
fork, a utensil that sort of looks and works like a fork, but with French fries. Stay tuned.
Hi, Anthony Sullivan here for McDonald's new signature crafted recipes. Sandwiches with the exquisitely exquisite flavors of pico guacamole, maple bacon Dijon, or sweet barbecue bacon. But when savoring these recipes, there's a hitch you just can't ditch. The topping dropping. This is a real problem. Wait, sorry, is this a real problem? Probably not, but good news. We solved it anyway with the flavor-focused, fundamentally superfluous frog. So you can pico all the pico guacamole, save your bacon with sweet maple seasoning, or get all the sweet onion BBQ for YOU. RSELF. The fork is ludicrously easy to use. Its ergonomic design makes it handy for righties and lefties. The fork even works in the dark. So call 1-844-McD-FRORK now to see how you could get your very own fork. But wait, there's more. Call now and we'll also maybe do some other stuff like this here and right here for free.
McDonald's continues to raise the bar. All-day breakfast, updated McNuggets, 3 max sizes, signature crafted recipes, and now the fork. Maybe not so much with that last one. Call now.
All right. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that video of the fork and the infomercial that we created with Anthony Sullivan. It was certainly a lot of fun and really, again, I think leaned into this insight and did it in a way that was really relevant to our brand. So we teased the whole campaign with this infomercial. We also, had this 1-800 number, which received 100,000 calls just within the first 48 hours. So, really great engagement and results kind of playing into this kind of silly, fun area. And then on this one day, we had a giveaway in our restaurants where customers could go in, and when they purchased one of these sandwiches, they could get one of these forks. So, again, we were able to measure some of the results, which we saw really, we exceeded all of our benchmarks in terms of conversation, volume, the 1-800 number, We didn't have any paid media support, but we were able to get over 2 million organic views, and just really strong earned media and social results. And then for the actual day itself, we also saw a large 17% lift in terms of sales and restaurant visits for those restaurants that had the fork giveaway. So again, this was a really great, tangible way that we could go back and measure and say, how do we really help, contribute to the bottom line with this effort prior to advertising beginning. And these were just some of the coverage, but, Good Morning America and some other, top outlets covered this. And then obviously leveraged a lot of different influencers, people like Girl with No Job that were having a lot of fun talking about the fork and, making it really relevant from a consumer space. And then around the country, local markets were able to activate this by having, their fork, which is another really great screen when we think about our goals and objectives, is how can we create something that works at the local grassroots level as well as the national level. So they all had a lot of fun with it. So switching gears, now that I've kind of highlighted how important it is to think about insights when you think about measurement, strategic planning, I want to also talk a little bit about polling because I think, oftentimes within an organization you get very focused on communicating kind of the company Kool-Aid, right, or however you're positioning things internally or what you think, is the best way to approach with consumers. And we have found that doing polling to understand how you position something, what's the best way to position something, really can help make inroads in terms of what message and what narrative you're communicating. So we've been doing different polling. We know from the political world, how important this is in terms of moving customers and moving people to get your message and to hear your message. And so we've been working with different companies to do some polling to understand, the best way to position something. This is just an example of, when we think about food quality and, we often are trying to reinforce the quality of our food at McDonald's. And so this has been a way for us to understand, an A and B test and scenario of, what do consumers like more and what's the best way to position something. So this is another thing that we have just started doing in the past couple of years that's really helped us in terms of sharing messages that are more compelling with our audience. And then targeting. I think, historically when you think about the audiences we're trying to reach, we often will go to, a media database to understand who are the outlets that are going to give us the broadest reach, that are going to make our leadership or members of management or clients most happy in terms of landing a front page story or a really big outlet. And one of the things I think is really important as you think about what those goals are and what you're trying to achieve, but more importantly, who are you trying to reach and what's the best way to reach them. And one of the things that we've been doing in partnership with our PR agency, Golan, is this notion of accelerators of relevance, and it's being much more data-driven and smart about who you're trying to reach and looking back at the outlets that maybe you had targeted previously to understand their scale, the engagement, how connected they are, their appeal, receptivity, et cetera. And can share a couple examples of how we've been able to do this. This is just an example of kind of our accelerators of relevance map for the Big Mac. And we were able to look at who are the outlets that historically have talked about the Big Mac or food items, what their reach is, how relevant are they to the target we're trying to reach, and then more importantly, how quickly can they help us accelerate our message. So, there could be a great placement that has relevance to our audience, but it actually doesn't then go anywhere and doesn't start picking up and driving that. So through this analysis, we're able to see who are those most important accelerators and how how quickly can that cascade? And oftentimes, there are more non-traditional outlets that maybe we hadn't had on our radar. And you know, it could be a trade outlet, for example, Nation's Restaurant News. Maybe a lot of our consumers aren't reading Nation's Restaurant News, but actually a lot of our top media that write on the food and restaurant business are following them. So they're actually a great accelerator for us. So really putting some diligence in terms of, you know, how we learn, how we map out, you know, the outlets and influencers that we're talking to, and then being much smarter about how we reach them. We've learned things like weightlifters talk about the Big Mac all the time, and gamers and moms love the Big Mac. So how can we be smarter in targeting some of those outlets that maybe weren't on our radar when we were taking a more broad macro approach? How do we take a more targeted approach to really hit those targets that we know might help us not only cover the story but also accelerate it quickly? So this has been a really great tool that we've been doing on just some of our larger campaigns and larger efforts to be really smart and informed about who we're trying to reach. And this was just an example from the Big Mac. So with our Big Mac news based on the accelerators, we went with Mashable, and it really paid dividends in terms of helping us accelerate quickly, but also really laying out a story with the messages we were looking for, told a rich, deeper story, and help us accelerate quickly with our target audience. And you can just see here, you know, this what I had mentioned about weightlifters and gamers, but this are just some of the insights we're looking at that, again, help us be smarter moving forward. And when we make recommendations to, you know, internally, we're able to leverage this data in a much smarter way to say, here's why we targeted, you know, these people and why. So it's just really helping us be smarter and also just driving a lot more strongly results. And then real-time listening to adjust and optimize. I think we're all doing this to some extent, but I think the world we live in, we have to be, you know, much more real-time. It's not just about planning the year out and being ready to launch a push or a campaign. We have to adjust and optimize. I don't know if anyone heard recently, and I don't have a slide on this, but Rick and Morty, which is a really popular show on Adult Swim, in their premiere a few months back, a big focus on the show was about this McNugget sauce that we had from the 80s called Szechuan sauce and how much they loved it and they wanted us to bring it back. And the amount of social conversation that it drove was, you know, unbelievable. I mean, it was huge. And we knew that it was something we needed to listen and adjust and react to. And so just this past weekend, when Rick and Morty had their season premiere, we arranged for some of this Szechuan sauce to kind of be brought back from history. It was given to the show's founders. And was able to be shared with some lucky fans on social media. And the amount of engagement that it drove, I will just tell you, blew some of our different planned campaigns with advertising out of the water. So I think it really has shown us that, you know, listening in real time, but also really focusing on what people want to hear and what they're engaged in just drives, you know, huge results in a much bigger way. So one of the ways we're doing this through Prime is we have a daily briefing, which is a daily email that talks about everything kind of in the news about our brand, what's driving social conversation. And as part of that, they've created a whole portal so we can go in and listen in real time and see on a dashboard some of the different keywords, things that are driving conversation, who are some of the top influencers that are, you know, talking about our brand, what are things that maybe are bubbling up that might be a crisis or issue that we need to react to. So every day, you know, we're getting these different reports and you know, reviewing this dashboard to understand kind of these emerging things so we can be ready to react or not react if needed. And then I think finally, just wrapping up, I think doing that solid analysis to learn if your goals were met. So you set out these goals at the beginning, you've You've gathered these great insights, and now you have this really big idea that's going to be really relevant and drive a lot of conversation. You've done polling to understand how you should position it and what the best way to frame your message and narrative is. And then you've executed your campaign in a big way, and now you're analyzing and understanding if your goals were met. And so we do this in a couple of different ways through just traditional quantitative metrics, so media impressions, share of voice, reach, clicks, likes, all that kind of stuff, message penetration, message pull-through, things like that. And, we do short-term and long-term reports. And then one of the other things that we've been doing is a monthly survey that surveys our audience pre and post. So we can ask them, how are you feeling about XYZ prior to the campaign, and now that you've seen this campaign, how do you feel now? And so it's been able to help us demonstrate perception change, share of advocacy, intent to visit McDonald's, things like that. So really getting into more of those original goals that you've set out to do that aren't just your traditional PR KPIs. So those are some of the ways that we are measuring. You can see here just a sample of this monthly survey and kind of some of the results in the pre and post, so we can see different lifts in this area. And again, it just helps us tell a broader story in terms of, outside of just the clips and, the things that you normally would do from a PR perspective, how these campaigns are really having impact, and then how you can take these findings to be really smart moving forward. So that is an overview of kind of all the ways that we're getting into measurement. And I think, Saurabh, we're going to have a little bit of a discussion and talk through it.
Yeah, absolutely, Molly. Thank you so much, first of all, for talking about McDonald's measures and the measurement journey. And I love the case studies that you gave. And I know that I have some questions here, and I have some questions myself, which I thought we could use this time to discuss. And I loved what you said about how we need to be smarter about measurement, about insights, about our strategy. I think that's the key word. We need to be smarter about the research that we do, about the insights that we get and how we turn that into our strategy. But I think one of the questions which most of the people usually have, and I would ask the same question, would be, what would you recommend to organizations which lack the resources of a McDonald's? How do organizations deal with that then?
So you're saying what? How should organizations start?
Absolutely, yes. How should organizations begin their measurement journey, which necessarily don't have the resources as that of a McDonald's?
Yeah, it's a great question. And obviously, I highlighted a number of ways. We are a larger organization with larger resources, and certainly we started much smaller, right? And I think what I would say is, start small and get some quick wins. And as you start building some of that momentum, you're going to not only raise the credibility within your function, but you're going to raise the need and importance for, for more measurement. So whether it's, there's ways you can do social audits online to gather those insights. So, it's mostly obviously time spent, but really being able to panel through and dig into some data online to gather that insight, right? That will really help show, here's an online audit we did, and here's kind of 2 or 3 key themes that we think are insights that are going to kind of play into our approach. So that would be something small. I think, there's so many surveys that you can create on your own. That could be a great, after-the-fact measurement of whether you're surveying, media outlets or influencers or consumers. But there are some, cost-effective vendors that you can leverage to do that. And then I would say, lean into your own, business reporting teams and, seeing if you can find any parallels between the work you're doing. And one of the things that we've really leaned into is, kind of separating ourselves from a big marketing push. So we very much complement the marketing work, but we're often announcing things and starting our push a week prior, so we can see without any, the marketing world, where our communications efforts are having an impact. So really being able to look at, your business results and seeing if you can tie any of that back to the bottom line. So I think, you're not going to be able to do everything right away, but take one or two things that you want to do differently and see how you can, start small and get those quick wins, and then it's going to build from there.
Perfect. I think that you kind of partly answered my next question about how do I begin, and I like that you start small, but you focus on the important things, and that's how you could start your measurement journey. And you talked about some of the case studies and something which I think resonated very well with the researcher in me, which said how you use the insights to talk about what your next strategy should be. Like enjoyment drives advocacy is such a strong insight if you could look at it from a researcher or from a strategy perspective. But could you also talk a little bit about some of the challenges you had in the measurement journey, Molly? I know it has been an interesting journey with the resources and everything, but are there some challenges that you faced in this journey which you would want to share with the audience?
Yeah, for sure. I think naturally, there's always two challenges I see when it comes to PR measurement. I think one is a lot of the metrics kind of become like wallpaper, right? Like you talk about impressions, you talk about this many clicks or this many likes or whatever it might be. And I think to some people, there's no context. It's, what does that mean? Is that good? Is that bad? What was our goal? People that aren't in the industry. So I think putting it in context is always something that's helped us overcome that challenge. So if we were able to say, this is an X% increase from last year or from prior to the campaign, or the sentiment and tone of the social conversation is, higher than it was for XYZ. I think being able to put it in context is helpful outside of what becomes, otherwise becomes kind of wallpaper of just sharing a bunch of numbers. So I would say that, that is always a challenge. I think the other big challenge is just resources. We always have little resources in PR to begin with. And so when you need to, take a big portion of your budget to put towards measurement, that often can be, really challenging because then you don't have enough funding to actually do the job you need to do. So, again, I would say starting small, being able to, maybe take some dollars to invest and start seeing some of that result in ROI will lead you to being able to do more in the future. So, you're going to scale it depending on your organization or your resources or needs, but just being able to show the due diligence, I think, naturally gives you more credibility within the space that, similar to that video that played at the beginning, it's not just willy-nilly and we're, shooting something out and praying that it does well. We actually have some measurable ways and how we're learning. So it just gives you that credibility.
No, I think that's great, Molly. And we have a question from the audience. Shelley would want to know if you could provide some more explanation of the PR metrics that you use. So is there more detail that you could share perhaps with the audience of the PR metrics and what kind of metrics McDonald's is using and some more detail about it?
Sure. We do a lot of traditional metrics. So we calculate impressions and reach based on, calculating all of the, the results that we have. One thing that's important to us is to understand message pull-through. So, for example, one of the things we've been trying to communicate is just how we're changing for the better, because we're trying to make a lot of changes to be better. And so seeing how that message pulls through is something that we track. I think often, I can tell you a number of times where I've seen, a bunch of clips or coverage that people share, and none of the key messages that you really wanted to convey came through. And so being able to see if that message was conveyed, and kind of that message pull through is a metric that we feel is really important. And then I think just the share of conversation. So when we look at McDonald's total conversation online or within the earned media space on a given topic, what is the share of conversation, and how do we compare that? So we might compare what might have been a really bad crisis and compare that to one of our proactive pushes. And again, that helps put it in context, I think, for our leadership to understand, how much noise did we create in a positive way about something versus something else. So those are just some of the, the different traditional metrics that we use. We use, the Prime dashboard and database, which helps us, with this kind of portal that in real time we can go in and understand any of these metrics on a given day. But those are just some of the basic ones that we look at.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Molly. Yeah. One last question I would say, you gave the example of Big Mac and how you listened really well and leaned on the Big Mac special sauce, and I think that was a phenomenal idea of how the media coverage and the press and everything was so much around it. So what single piece of advice would you have for anyone starting down the path of research and measurement?
Well, I would say, I think, one of the things when you talk about that Big Mac special sauce, one of the things we've tried to be really diligent, I think, as communicators, we often put the whole kitchen sink into what we want to communicate. We've got all these different proof points, and there's this part of the story and this, and, you got to add in this piece. And I think, again, leaning into an insight that can really drive that big idea, I think all those proof points will come. But I think sometimes we don't see the forest through the trees, and we just focus on all the different, trees and things we want to communicate, and we kind of lose that breakthrough moment because we're not thinking about, kind of that one big idea or one insight that could help drive it. So I think, being much more diligent and structured in terms of gathering the insights, really thinking about, the goals you want to set out to do, and then being diligent and sticking to it will really yield stronger dividends in terms of, your results and your, return. And I think, check out there's so many great case studies online of, what has worked for different brands and, companies that might be more similar to you and what you're trying to communicate against. So just would encourage people to check those out, for different ideas. But I think, you're not going to, climb the mountain overnight, right? You got to take baby steps and have some small wins. And so that would be my biggest advice, is just to start on the journey and do more than you were doing, last week when it comes to measurement, and it will build and grow over time.
Absolutely, Molly. And if I could just add one thing here, I would say we should also enjoy the journey as we get on that, because at times we in public relations or communications forget the fun in research and measurement. And I think we need to enjoy that while we connect the dots between awareness, engagement, reach, and bottom line and ROI. So I would say that was such an interesting conversation, and thank you so much for your time and for sharing the journey, sharing the insights, and sharing the case studies as well. So thank you so much for your inputs. Thank you so much for the insights.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thanks, everyone, for taking the time to join.
Thank you. This does conclude today's conference. We thank you for your participation. You may disconnect your lines at this time and have a wonderful day.